Hello, welcome again to Thursday Tidbits. This is episode number 2, and I've got some material here to share with you all today. So, mentioned yesterday that I'm going to be showing you one of my favorite color chords that I like to use when I'm playing, and you can use it it's pretty versatile. You can use it in pretty much any song that you play at some point or another, if not multiple places. So I'm going to kind of show you that today and give you an idea of how to voice it, how to play it, and some different contexts and where you can use it. So if you want to use the official bogged down theory name for it, it's a 13 chord with a raised 11. But I don't really think of it that way other than if I stop and think really hard about it. When I'm playing it in the middle of the song, I think of it a different way, and I'll show you how that works. So the idea of the chord is that you're playing, anytime that you play a 7th chord, you can use this. So there's lots of different scenarios when you might use a 7th, or in theory you might call it a dominant 7th chord. But let me show you an example. So I'm just going to play Amazing Grace. I'm just going to use that familiar tune as a way to illustrate this chord. So let me turn around here. So if I'm playing in the key of F, playing Amazing Grace, and of course I'm going to be using my F chord, my 1 chord. Then coming to about the middle of the song, I'm going to need to use a G chord. You might think of it as a 2 chord, whatever you call it, a G chord or a G7. I might voice it that way. G, F, B. And if you don't have quite the reach there, you can roll it. G, F, B. So that's your second, your 2 chord or secondary dominant, you might call it. Sorry, let me get this set up here. So let me play it for you, and then I'll show you a little bit more about how it works. I'll tell you when we come to the G chord here. So playing Amazing Grace in the key of F. Here's the G chord here. So there's your G chord. This is normally where you would play a G chord there. So if I want to use this specific chord that I'm talking about today, instead of playing it that way, I'll do this. So again, that's your 13th chord with a raised 11. Let me show you how that works. Basically, all I'm doing is, while I'm playing the G chord in my left hand, I'm playing the chord in my right hand that is 1 whole step above that. So I'm playing an A major chord in my right hand. So my left hand, I'm doing G, F, B. I'm doing a G7 down here. That's a pretty typical 7th chord voicing, to do the 1, the 7, and the 10. I'm playing that in my left hand. Again, you can roll it if you don't have the reach. And then in my right hand, I'm playing the A major chord in my right hand. So put them together, and it sounds like that. So it's kind of got a really, really colorful sound to it. That's why I call it a color chord. It just kind of adds a little ornamentation, a little bit of color to what you're playing. And again, you can use that in multiple places in your song. Let me give you an idea of what I was doing. There's a lot of variations you can do with that, and I'll show you some of them. So what I did, even when I played a minute ago, when I was playing all I did is I just resolved that A chord there. I took these two and I moved them up to the D and the F, which are already in your G7 chord. So if I play it that way, both hands together, it sounds like this. Let me do that again. So there's your color chord, your 13th. That's a technical name, again, would be G13 with a raised 11. I just think of it more as A over G, A over G7, A chord in my right hand, G7 in my left hand. So let me give you now some other instances in which you can use this chord. It's pretty typical when you are ending a song. Sometimes you'll go into kind of this false ending where instead of going back to your 1 chord, you go to your 6 minor then your 2. So let me give you an illustration of that. This is probably a progression you've heard before. So let's say I'm ending Amazing Grace. So instead of going to my F, I've now gone to a D minor. There's the chord there. So I'm doing an A in my right hand. I'm doing a G7 in my left hand. So it just adds a little bit of color, a little bit of embellishment to a pretty common progression that you would normally use. And again, you can voice that multiple ways. So let me show you what I was doing specifically. Show you what I was doing on that one. So again, same thing. G7 chord down here, G, F, B, and up here this time, instead of doing this inversion of the A chord, I was doing this, and then I was just adding the F here. So this is what I'm playing on my right hand while I play a G7 chord on my left hand. The F is just a reference to the 7th of the G chord. I'm just doubling that. I'm also playing the F, you'll recall, on my left. And I'm just adding it into my right hand as well. So again, I do that little resolve there. So there's a place that I use that. Now you can also use this. So that's if you want to use it on a secondary dominant chord, or your 2 chord, if you want to think of it as that. You can also use this just on an ordinary dominant chord. So let's say I am playing still Amazing Grace, still in the key of F, but I get down to my ending cadence, and I'm going to play my C chord before I go back to F. So let me just play through. So we already showed you how to do that. There's another place you can use it. And then, so what if on the end there, when I played my C chord, if I wanted to use that color chord there, I might do this. That's the same exact chord there. I'm just doing it on a different chord. It's the same idea. I'm just doing it over a C chord instead of over a G chord now. So I'm playing a C7, C, E, B flat, another typical 7th chord voicing in the left hand. So C, E, B flat, and in my right hand I'm playing a D, which is a whole step above C. I'm only playing those 2. But that still implies the D chord, because I've got especially that F sharp there, that's what's kind of adding the color to it. So I'm doing these 3 in there's your C7 chord. Here's my partial, at least, D chord in the right hand. And when I play them together, again, it sounds like this. There's the chord right there. So let me give you one more variation of this, a way that you can use this to add a really, really pretty run to some of your cadences. So what I like to do is let's go back to the G7 chord that I was doing a minute ago. So again, I've got my G7 here, but let's say instead of going straight to a G7, I want to do like a G sus chord. I want to do a suspension, and that's about as far as I can reach there. So I'm going to probably be rolling that. So G, F, and the middle C there. So you've got a G suspended chord, and I'm going to resolve it eventually down to the B. But I'm going to make use of this chord that I just showed you to kind of help out and add some color to that resolution. So let me play it for you, then I'll explain what I'm doing. The right hand is really what has all the really tasty part of this. So if I'm playing the G, there's my G sus chord. That's basically the idea there. Let me show you what I'm doing with my right hand while I do that. So I'm actually all I'm doing in the left hand is I'm just playing the G and the F. In the right hand, I'm doing this. I'm playing A, C, and then I'm playing the C sharp and B together. Remember, the B is part of my G7 chord, but I'm not resolving to it just yet. I'm doing the A, C. Now I resolve to my B, but while I do that, I also play the C sharp, which is part of that A chord I was showing you earlier. So there's a lot of different things you can do with this, and probably a lot of it would be really hard for me to explain just one guy here with a camera. But if you play around with that, you can come up with a lot of different variations to it. I like to do that's something that uses the same, so let me show you what I was doing there. In my right hand, I was doing that again, and then I do D sharp, B, G, and then I just play some kind of C chord, a C major 7 or C, whatever you want to play there. I'm going to my C chord. In my right hand, I'm playing G, 7, D flat 7, C, and in the left hand, or sorry, in the right hand, I'm doing so I'm kind of using that same chord, that E, that A, the C sharp there implies my A chord. And now I'm using a different chord here. Talk more about that maybe next week. But I just wanted you to hear that full progression just because I really, really like it. So it's got a really, really nice sound to it. So I'll talk more about that full progression maybe next week when I talk a little bit about tritone substitution, which is a really, really neat concept when it comes to reharmonization. Especially a lot of jazz harmonization. It really relies heavily on tritones. We'll talk more about that next week. But I just wanted to show you that, and hopefully that's something that you can use in your playing, your reharmonization. So for my closer today, I'm just going to play a verse and chorus of one of my favorite, using one of my favorite reharmonizations that I've ever done. And I remember when I first figured some of these chords out. And so it's Sweet Hour of Prayer, pretty familiar song. But I'm going to show you, or I'm going to play a little bit for you, kind of show you some of the way I like to harmonize Sweet Hour of Prayer. So I'm in the key of F. Here's my favorite chord progression here. There's the chord we learned today. That is it for today, folks. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something from it. Before I sign off, I will just give you a little heads up on next week. I want to get a little bit of feedback from you all, so give me some ideas on some closer songs. So last week I played a little bit of Ivory Palaces, played Sweet Hour of Prayer today, but if I'm just relying on my own mind to try to think of songs to finish off these videos with, I'm going to eventually start using the same ones over and over again. So give you some ideas. I'd love to hear from you all, some requests on what you'd like me to do as a closer song maybe for next week's video. And I've already got in mind, like I said, some ideas on what I'll show you on reharmonization or on the tidbit for next week. So thanks for watching, and have a blessed Thursday.